Welcome to our evening for Imprisoned Writers' Day. Today we will introduce a Kurdish poet, Ilhan Sami Comak, who has been in prison in Turkey for 28 years. The European Court of Human Rights in 2007 declared Comak's persecution unlawful because he confessed under severe torture. So I want to thank the organizers of this event for their collaboration. This event is organized by PEN, Center for German-Speaking Authors Abroad, the person of Gino Leineweber and myself, and by LetterWithWings from Ireland, by Viviana Fiorentina and Silla Toldi, and our Turkish friends Ipek, Ozel and Erkut Tokman. Before we start, Leman will do a little song, which is based on a poem of Ilhan. Herzlich willkommen zu unserem Abend zum Imprisoned Writers' Day. Heute werden wir Ihnen den kurdischen Poeten Ilhan Sami Comak vorstellen, der seit 28 Jahren in der Türkei im Gefängnis sitzt. Der Europäische Gerichtshof für Menschenrechte hat 2007 seine Verurteilung als unrechtmäßig erklärt, weil sein Geständnis unter Folter erzwungen wurde. Ich möchte mich bei den verschiedenen Organisatoren dieser Veranstaltung für die Zusammenarbeit bedanken. Diese Veranstaltung wurde vom PEN, Zentrum für deutschsprachige Autoren im Ausland, in der Person von Gino Leineweber und mir, sowie von LetterWithWings aus Irland mit Viviana Fiorentino und Silla Toldi, sowie mit unseren türkischen Freunden Ipek, Ozel und Erkut Tokman organisiert. So, als erstes hören wir mal Leman stehen, wird ein von ihr vertontes Gedicht von Ilhan singen. Danke.
Mauern überwindende, Schule schwänzende Kinder gibt es nicht. Den Menschen aus Wörtern, Freundschaftsbändchen, flechtende Gutes gibt es nicht. Zum Steine werfen Steine gibt es nicht. Morgentau sammelnde Blumen, Atlas überflutende Flüsse gibt es nicht. Die Frische der Menschen ansammelnden, gebackenen Sesamkringel gibt es nicht. Mit ihrem Verzicht, mit ihrer menschlichen Schönheit, die Frau gibt es nicht. Die Möglichkeit auf einer Wiese ausgestreckt, die Treue des Himmels zu erproben, gibt es nicht. Weder eine Lampe noch eine Kerze. Dunkelheit gibt es nicht, absolut keine Dunkelheit. Jahreswechsel und Mondfinsternisse gibt es nicht. Es gibt keine Erde Achse. Die schwitzende Geschwindigkeit des Pferdes gibt es nicht. Den vom Wind lüftenden Vorhang und den verderbenden Stängel, die Trauben, gibt es nicht. Getrennt vom Leben ist die Sonne. Eine Richtung gibt es nicht. Doch gibt es einen Ausweg. Doch gibt es einen Ausweg. Doch gibt es einen Ausweg. Doch gibt es einen Ausweg. Immer gibt es den. Immer gibt es den. Doch gibt es einen Ausweg. Doch gibt es einen Ausweg. Doch gibt es einen Ausweg. Immer gibt es den. Immer gibt es den. Immer gibt es den.
Vielen Dank, Lehmann. Thank you very much. This was a wonderful introduction. Then I would say we start with Erkut in English, and then I will do the translation into German. Okay?
Okay. So I will talk about İlhan Sami Çomak's poetry briefly tonight. First of all, I would like to express my warm welcome to all participants and thank the organizer of this event, making once more possible İlhan Sami Çomak's voice to be heard and recognized. I knew for the first time İlhan Sami Çomak by his poetry, in fact, nothing related to political. My ex-publishing house, Komşu, was publishing famous Yasak Meyve poetry series in Istanbul. And I had recently joined the family when my third poetry book published from this series. That time, director of the publishing house gave me as a gift İlhan Sami Çomak's poetry book. Whenever I met the book that I love, it is my habit that I always want to reach the poet in person, or at least to contact, to express my appreciation and expressing my ideas or discuss on it. İlhan was one of them. To this end, when I asked the director how could I reach him, I found out that he was in prison and our friendship sailed off. We all describe a miracle as a supernatural phenomenon, mystery, something inexplicable naturally or scientifically, is therefore considered as the work of divine mediation. I always called his accomplishments in prison, therefore, as the miracle. Perhaps he is the first Turkey-born Kurdish imprisoned man who became a poet in prison. Why I say this? Because including from his first book, all his 8 books were all written in prison. In Turkey, for many years, writers and poets were kept politically in prison in different periods of their life. Kept inside, some was longer and some was shorter. Some was shorter, and those become, unfortunately, the part of our so-called premature democratization process. We know well that from imprisoned persons, declarations after they had released from prison, some especially political prisoners always were bound with reading books inside because nothing else to do. So they become wise and intellectual. Therefore, some calls prison in Turkey such as self-learned school. Ilhan, I think, one of the best example of this. Although he is limited to receive the books at each visit with 6, I knew he was very happy to read books, whatever he can reach at them by the hand of Ipek. İlhan Sami Çomak's poetry is a human landscape. I always underlined and mentioned many times and kept saying this. He was the soul and the talent of big poet. I want to repeat this once again in front of you too. This big soul is growing and reshaping in him, and when he is out with total freedom and possibilities by knowing today's life and the world, he will adapt, reconstruct, and develop his poetry even better in boom. When we look through Ilhan's poetry, mainly we can see some common characteristics throughout all his books. His great respect to humanity and being human, one of the central subjects of his poetry, that rises naturally from his being, but widened his senses via language possibilities with utmost sincerity, magnanimity, and humanism. For this respect, we can compare him with Nazım Hikmet. He was learned this heritage from Anatolia, in his region and around. It is tradition, as well as from his family, grandfather, mother, father, uncle, sisters, and brothers. We can also observe this family roots pursuing narratively its own story in his poetry. This becomes sometimes from love of family, turn into love of mother, then love of women, then long-lasted desire of the poet in him as to love and to be loved, finds its reflection with enriched images and objects from real life, once he lived before imprisoned. Such as a rose in one of the repeated imagery in his poetry, matched with the woman, same as the rose and nightingale, presents love classical Eastern literature in various texts written. We can add on those another core value of his poetry is nature and the cities that carried in his poetry from his childhood and younghood, memorized, transformed, reconstructed in poetic language, and another main core theme of his poetry, longing for freedom and peace within imprisonment, polite angerness, revolt, although it is slightly censored in terms of political utterness. This was also quite brave and respectful to his own poetic perseverance. Undesirable facts that he burdened in prison, anti-humanistic impossibleness, unreachableness, but in the end, with the rich imagination to recreate new poetic space and utterance in the mind of the poet, transformed all those handicaps into such happiness as wise and miracle. As a poet can succeed, he is in search of new possibilities in his poetry. Despite his limited access to these sources in writing, we can observe narrativeness fed time to time, his freestyle, but never try to lose its music in structure within fluidity. Although sometimes stones can prevent the water riverbed, and the voice of water is healing in his poetry, but sometimes his utmost divine voice is boosting like waterfall into our hearts. Yet he tends to experiment, although slightly in change, tries new forms, giving great hope to reader for his unexpected poetic power to recreate. I wish I would say much more thing on this on his poetry than this, but our limited time only allows me not to go further for this time. But I hope to extend those ideas even further for the next occasion. I hope my words shed light on his poetry even a bit, and thank you for listening me tonight in this meaningful event. And I believe many of us will be also his voice out of prison as solidarity poets outside. Because as I always said, sometimes freedom also imprisoned outside too, especially in our minds. In this sense, I have always felt Ilhan is more free than many others outside. I called out prisoners then. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Erkut. Ich werde jetzt kurz übersetzen. Erkut heißt Sie alle herzlich willkommen und bedankt sich bei den Organisatoren dieser Veranstaltung, dass sie der Stimme Ilhan Sami Comaks Gehör verleihen. Erkut hat Comak durch seine Poesie kennengelernt. Nichts, was mit Politischem zu tun hatte. Sein ehemaliger Verlag Komsu veröffentlichte die berühmte Gedichtsreihe Yakamevi in Istanbul und Erkuts dritter Gedichtband war in dieser Reihe. Und der Verlagsleiter schenkte ihm ein Gedichtsband von Ilhan. Und Erkut, immer wenn er ein Buch besonders mag, versucht er persönlichen Kontakt zum Autor aufzunehmen und um die Wertschätzung auszudrücken und über das Buch zu diskutieren. Und so auch natürlich mit Ilhan. Und als er den Direktor fragte, wer ihn erreichen könnte, erfuhr er, dass dieser inhaftiert war. Und so begann ihre lange Freundschaft. Wir alle beschreiben es als Wunder, als ein übernatürliches Phänomen. Erkut bezeichnet Ilhans Leistung im Gefängnis so. Er ist wohl der erste kurdisch-türkische Gefangene, der im Gefängnis zum Dichter wurde. Alle seine 8 Bücher wurden im Gefängnis geschrieben. In der Türkei wurden über die Jahre hinweg viele Dichter und Schriftsteller politisch inhaftiert, einige längere, einige kürzer, und dies ist leider Teil des sogenannten unreifen Demokratisierungsprozesses des Landes. Viele, insbesondere politische Gefangene, verbringen viel Zeit, lange Zeit im Gefängnis mit Lesen von Büchern, um sich weiterzubilden und intellektuell zu werden. Und deshalb nennen manche das Gefängnis in der Türkei auch die autodidaktische Schule. Ilhan ist das beste Beispiel dafür, obwohl er bei jedem Besuch nur 6 Bücher mitgebracht werden dürfen, weiß er gut, dass Ilhan sich über jedes Buch, das ihn durch die Hand Ipeks erreicht, unheimlich freut. Die Poesie von Ilhan ist eine Art menschliche Landschaft. Er hat die Seele und das Talent eines großen Dichters. Diese große Seele formt sich in ihm, und wenn er entlassen sein wird in der Freiheit, wird er noch so viel mehr Möglichkeiten haben, und Erkut glaubt, dass seine Poesie explodieren wird. Oder er wird sie in andere Richtungen entwickeln. Es gibt einige Merkmale, die in all seinen Büchern wieder auftauchen. Ein großer Respekt vor der Menschheit und dem Menschsein, eines der zentralen Themen seiner Poesie. Und in dieser Hinsicht können wir ihn mit Nazim Hikmet vergleichen. Er hat diese Tradition aus Anatolien, seiner Region und von seiner Familie gelernt. Wir können auch beobachten, wie diese Familienwurzeln in seiner Poesie narrativ verarbeitet werden. Die Liebe zur Familie wird zur Mutterliebe oder zur Frauenliebe. Den Wunsch zu lieben und geliebt zu werden, drückt er mit reichen Bildern aus, die aus dem wirklichen Leben stammen, aus der Zeit vor der Gefangenschaft. Die Rose zum Beispiel ist eine seiner Metaphern. Sie steht für die Frau und die Liebe, so wie es in der klassischen östlichen Literatur geschieht. Darüber hinaus hat seine Poesie eine weitere Charakteristik, die Natur und die Städte, auch die aus seiner Kindheit und Jugend. Er transformiert sie in poetische Sprache, sowie die Sehnsucht nach Freiheit und Frieden. Auch Wut und Revolte, zwar etwas zensiert in Bezug auf die politischen Äußerungen, aber das sehr mutig und respektvoll seiner eigenen poetischen Beharrlichkeit gegenüber. All das Furchtbare, das Menschenverachtende, was er im Gefängnis erlebt, verwandelt er mit seiner Vorstellungskraft in einen neuen poetischen Raum. Weise und wundersam, wie es nur einem Dichter gelingen kann. Er ist aber auch auf der Suche nach neuen Möglichkeiten in seiner Poesie. Trotz limitierten Zugang zu schriftlichen Quellen versucht er sich zeitweilig im freien Stil, aber ohne die Musik in der Struktur seiner Worte zu verlieren. Es gibt noch viel zu sagen über seine Poesie, aber die Zeit ist kurz. Erkut dankt uns für den heutigen Abend und für diese bedeutende Veranstaltung. Und er glaubt, viele von uns werden Ilhan solidarisch ihre Stimme geben. Manchmal ist die Freiheit auch außerhalb des Gefängnisses eingesperrt, besonders in unseren Köpfen. In diesem Sinne hatte Erkut immer das Gefühl, dass Ilhan freier ist als viele andere von draußen. Nun übergebe ich das Wort an Viviane Fiorentino von LetterWithWings in Irland. Now I give the word to Viviane Fiorentino, excuse me, from LetterWithWings in Ireland.
Good evening, everyone. I start with a poem by Ilhan, translated by Caroline Stockford. My child, we use the wings of the sea when delaying rains, when the skies cave into my eyes, it's because I worship blue. My fear is a meaning derived from the wilderness, and yes, I change when I hear the tap, tap of rain. Time come, time go, my sisters, my brothers, of course, my body puts me down. Good evening, everyone. I'm talking tonight on behalf of Letters with Wings. Thanks for inviting Letters with Wings in this important event. Letters with Wings is an initiative of Northern Ireland-based poets. We are Nandi Jola, Cilla Toldi, who is here tonight and we will listen to her later, Maria McManus, and myself. Letters with Wings promotes arts and defends the rights of artists worldwide to responsible freedom of expression. In spring 2020, during the first lockdown, we discovered the possibility for an emotional bond with those artists who are kept in prison all over the world for speaking out and fighting for human rights. So for Poetry Day Ireland, we asked the public on Twitter and Facebook to engage with those stories of artists listed on our page and write and post a poetic letter of solidarity. Today was immensely successful. We had more than 8,000 people visiting and interacting with the page. Letters from all over the world were written to 27 artists. So the letters can be read in our website, wingsletters.wordpress.com. I will put the link in the chat. We have already sent letters to Nadine Turfent, Nudem Durak, Dilan Kurdi, all Kurdish artists, journalists detained in Turkey. We also sent letters to Stella Nianzi, who has been released but still persecuted. And we are in the process to send more letters. So please feel free to contact us at letterswithwings2020@gmail.com if you would like to send a letter to Ilhan. We will work out through Irish pen and English pen and reach him with your message. We are also collecting donations in order to translate the letters in the languages of the countries where the prisoners are, and also for sending them. So you will find the donation page in our website. Also in Ireland, where Letter with Wings is based, Irish Pen is running many initiatives in solidarity and in support of Ilhan Comak. I urge you to visit the Irish Pen website at www.irishpen.com and follow the initiatives. This past Monday, Irish Pen held a Pen Friends writing session supported by Pen International and English Pens and Pen Writers program by Pen Norway. Several members joined it in this online event, and we wrote dozens of messages to imprisoned writers all over the world, including Ilhan Comak. There will be more writing sessions in the near future, so please follow Irish Pen or become a member, or you will receive further information. Also, Irish Pen curated an edition of the Poetry Jukebox. The Poetry Jukebox are a street installation throughout which it is possible to listen to the poetry of international imprisoned writers. And this edition includes poems by Ilhan. You can listen to this poem of the jukebox in the SoundCloud, so online, at the link I will put in the chat in a second. Otherwise, check in SoundCloud Poetry Jukebox Quotidian. I will read some of the poems by Ilhan, but before this, please let me spend a few words about art and activism. The art expresses what is to be human in our time and place. And that brings news that not everyone wants to hear, news that certain governments in particular want to suppress. So they bring in censorship, intimidation, vexation, lawsuit, punitive laws. The writing that prisoners continue to do against overwhelming odds is not bitter or negative. It's not about recrimination or hatred. These voices soar, they are free. They rise far above their immediate circumstances and call us to join them if we dare. Ilhan Comak's mind, his imagination, his words are free. Pen Norway, Norsk Pen, are running a brilliant campaign for Ilhan, which include people writing poems for him, to which he responds with poem of his own. And I urge you tonight to visit their page, Pen Norway, and learn more about this beautiful campaign. And now I leave you with some poems by Ilhan. Thank you very much. I came to you live for Ipek Ozel. And the trees shade buckles, birds give all they know to their wings. The wind blows an ovation, and from the sun comes the need to touch. It is this leaves language and sweetness are addressing now that the time for transgressions has come. Yet on the hillside is always the grace of abstention. Think of the river when you get a chance, flow in vain in water's books. The knots wish to be untied. I'm speaking of the sound of a few colors. By denying summer, embrace the spring, and with a few tired steps, forgive me. Forgive this trembling cloud. I came to you with the pain of hands cracked by the mud. I came to you saying, let childhood climb the garden wall again. I came to you with the art of breathing, sleep into morning. Don't pull down my garden wall. Let the path fill with the soft shapes of leaves. Let the road dream of being covered up in grass. There is no city we need to reach. Everything is here. Open the window, open it as the horses whinny on in the wideness of the world. Open it without speaking of the shortness of summer, the never-ending winter. Open it, that the sky steers with the hiding symbols of my mind. I came to you saying, open the door to the presence of existence. as the sky steers in its form. I came to you saying, open the door of becoming, open the door of existence to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Viviana. Thank you. I don't know why Ipek cannot enter, but
I talked to her and she says she hasn't received the approval of her registration.
yeah,
Maybe.
I would say I will read the German translation, which I have here, so at least part of our public gets more information about Ilhan. Ipek bedankt sich für diese Veranstaltung zu Ehren von Ilhan Sami Comak. Als sie ihm heute sagte, dass er Mittelpunkt der Veranstaltung wäre, war er sehr aufgeregt und möchte sich ganz herzlich bei uns allen bedanken. Ilhan Sami Comak wurde 1994 im Alter von 22 Jahren festgenommen und sitzt seit 28 Jahren hinter Gittern. Ilhans Fall ist nicht nur im türkischen Maßstab wirklich legendär, sondern in der Rechtsgeschichte weltweit. Er wurde zweimal vor Gericht gestellt, einmal von einem Militärgericht und nach der Entscheidung des Europäischen Gerichtshofs noch einmal vor ein Zivilgericht, aber es hat nichts geändert. Der ganze Prozess dauerte 22 Jahre, unglaublich, und er wurde zweimal zu lebenslanger Haftstrafe für Verbrechen verurteilt, die er nie begangen hat, die vor Gericht nie nachgewiesen werden konnten. So hat er 28 Jahre in schweren Sicherheitsgefängnissen verbracht. Sein Leben wurde ihm gnadenlos gestohlen. Er verbrachte mehr Zeit seines Lebens im Gefängnis als draußen. Aber das bisschen, was er vom Leben haben konnte, verschönerte er und entwickelte mit seiner Kraft, Fantasie, seinem Optimismus eine Poesie. In dieser Hinsicht ist er wirklich ein Wunder. Bis heute wurden 8 Bücher seiner Poesie veröffentlicht und ein neues kommt nächsten Monat heraus. Er hat viele Essays, die in Zeitschriften und Zeitungen veröffentlicht wurden, geschrieben und seine Autobiografie, die jetzt schon in der 4. Auflage ist. Wenn man seine Schriften liest, kann man Zeuge werden seiner Liebe, Lust und des Optimismus, die er in sich trägt. Unsere Stimmen, die heute Ilhan Gehör verschaffen, werden ihn bestärken und den Mut zum Durchhalten geben. So, nun würde ich sagen, wird Gino weitermachen.
Ja, schönen Dank und hello to everybody and I will read 2 poems that I translated from the English language and to German. Heute Morgen schaue ich dich an. Schneide die Trauerweide zurück, Knospen zittern und lechzen zum Treiben. Ich schaue dich an, streue meine eigene Asche aus und gehe hinaus. Füge noch Licht der Sonne hinzu und schreite auf Saaten. Die Welt fällt auf mich herab. Auf Zehenspitzen bringt die Stille die Harmonie zurück. Schulter an Schulter mit dem Regen stehe ich im aufziehenden Geruch der Erde auf dem Hügel. Nebenbei bleiben einige Worte unausgesprochen. Ich tauche ein in das Geheimnis des Gebets, lache ein wenig und klammere mich an eine sich ausbreitende Brise, wie hoch die Wolken sind. Die Wurzeln schauen zur Erde. Ich schaue auf dich. und kämme mein Haar. Ich setze mein Merkmal an den entlegensten Fleck, spüre die Resonanz des Schmerzes, die Reflexion des Spiegels. Die Nacht ist nackt. Flammen warten ungeduldig zu lodern. Nur ein paar Atemzüge bleiben mir noch. Mein Körper ist müde. Aus plötzlicher Stille steigt Asche auf. Die Welt fällt auf mich herab. Das zweite Gedicht hat den Titel Aus diesem Grund. Um die Resonanz eines Briefes im Raum zwischen uns und der Sonne zu zeigen, habe ich mir ins Gesicht geschnitten. Ich befahl dem müden Gesicht der Rebellion, lachen. Ich bin jetzt mit ihr versöhnt. Wie wenn man eine Skizze gezeichnet hat und sich fragt, ein Apfel, eine Birne oder eine Aprikose? Es ist eine Pflaume, sage ich mit warmem Ton, dem Ton einer Pause. Blutsbrüderschaft war weit und ist verschlossen. Mir fließt das Blut aus allen Wunden. Mein Schädel brummt vom Sammeln von Geräuschen der Nacht. Hört mich gut an. Hört mich jetzt an. Ich bin die Liebe der Blumen. Überquere den Nil und die arabischen Dünen. Wenn Tigris und Euphrat mich aufhalten, ist es Blut. Auch der Geschmack hat einen Namen. Schreiben meinen als ein Auge, wie ein Wachmann. Gehen ist Poesie, Prosa, der Weg. Ich könnte meines Vaters Bruder sein und ein Amulett aus Schmerzen tragen.
Vielen Dank. Thank you very much, Gino, for this wonderful translations and this wonderful reading. This was very profound. Thank you very much. Vielen Dank.
My pleasure.
Gino,
Thank you.
für diese wunderbare Interpretation deiner selbst übersetzten Gedichte. Jetzt würde ich Erkut aufrufen. Erkut, can you read 2 poems in Turkish?
Yes, sure. Yes, I choose 2 poems for you. One from the Dicle'nin Günlüğü. The Diary of Dicle is a river on the eastern part of the Turkey. So, as I told you in my speech, also his family roots reflects on his poetry as narratively structured in his poetry, and I will read a poem dedicated to his father. Aklımda ilk kalan şey çok güzeldi. Annemin gölgesi uzundu. Babam bol güneşli bir tatildi az gidilen. Ben bir çocuktum Bingöl sokaklarında. Göğe kenarından bakar, arkadaş devşirirdim adına yeni diyen. Bazen karanlık günlerim olunca dedem beni kucağına alırdı. Yalnızlık gül kokardı. Bahar kendi adıyla vardı. Sabahlar inanılmaz bir gökyüzü. İnsan adam gibi yürür. Denizine konuşan aynalara sır saklardı. Erkekler kabuk bağlar en ince yerinden. Korkulardan güzel kadınlar yaparlardı. Ağaçlar geçmişini inkar etseler de aşıyla, kuşlar öyle güzel bir cıvıltı. Ben her ölüm sonrası cami kapılarında yıldız arardım. Gitmek yüzlü babalar Almanya olurdu. Anneler bu hasretle kendilerini yakar, her sözle evlere Hızır getirirlerdi. Irmak kenarları vardı bize yasak. Ben kendim sevdim bu yasağı. O zamanlar bahar, top, koşmak, bir de iyi saklanmaktı akşam alacasında. Nereden geliyor demeden, bütün rüyalar benimdi. Günler kısa, yaşamak çok güzeldi. Babam bana oğlum diyordu. Ben bunu çok seviyordum. Gecelerden uzaktım, atlara tutkun. Yalnız sevmek yorardı beni, az konuşurdum. Kısa boylu heveslerim vardı. Sıra dağlar, günahıma akan ırmak olur. Kuşlar vurulunca ben anneme dönerdim. Ağır başlı ağlayışlarımı zor sığdırırdım koynuna. Amcam bir eski uzun havaydı, inceden ince. Bense onu her gördüğümde sesini çalardım bütün banyolarıma. Babam aslında pir titremesiydi sevdayla. Çok da ağlardı sema her duruşunda. Bendeki yaralar yalnızlığının duyulan sesi. Aklımda son kalan şey çok güzeldi. Babam bana oğlum diyordu ve ben onu çok seviyordum. Evet, this is the first one and I read now the second one. Gidelim. Bu mumların kırmızı, mor, sarı alev diliyle, kösnül ve hızlı adımlarla hadi. Siyahın içinden ışık hızının korkunç geğirtileriyle gidelim. Uzun bir çakal sesiyle çalkalanıyor gece. Unutkan ve harlı pişmanlıklarla yontuyor. Uçurumun karanlıklarını yalan. Dünyanın içinde kelimeler yarılıyor. Toprak bereketiyle kırbaçlıyor. Bağda bostanda. Kırbaçlıyor en çok kapkara ellerimi. Uzun ve esmer bir cümle kopuyor ağzımdan. Bir gün belki, bir gün en eski, bir gün kocaman adımlarla sana geldim. Dip gizli ve muson yağmurlarıyla bir fay bıraktım. Bir gün gidelim. Tuttum hafif bir sis gibi çöktüm denize. Caddeleri ayaklarımın hengamesiyle hırpaladım. Dağıldı isminin harcı. Devrik bir zeburla yeşerdi aklım. Uzun bir mezmur, uzun bir mersiye, uzun, bıçkın ve uykusuz. Gidelim. Senden söz edeceğiz. Önce hayatın dilini kuşanarak. İnanacağız mesela vaktin tamsa, günün o kabarık sesine yağmur beklerken, salkımlar, şarkılar, taşın aralanan dudakları. İş bu hadi, sen meçhul, ben meçhul, sevişelim. Bir çıkmaz sokak mayalanıyor belki her adımda. Dağ çoğalıyor, deniz kupkuru, ormanlar işte. Beni bir kenara bırakma. Tarazla ufku, yuhalayarak geç. Tükür tükürebildiğin kadar kovulduğunda, incinen bir esmerlikle gidelim. Çünkü senden korkuyorum. O çocuk yüzünün bahçelerinde susan rüzgarlardan. Dalgalanan saçların çağın yaprağı ile gölgeleniyor. Mayalanan süt bereketli, buğday, aç tavuk, mısır. Gidelim. Ezberledim demirin sonsuz inadını. Kır kapıyı, sarkacı al. Gövdeme işlenmiş tırnak izlerinden öğren zamanı. Gidelim. Thank you very much for listening to Poems in
Thank you
Turkish.
very much, Erkut. This was very important to hear the poems in Turkish too, to get an
I'm looking
idea.
forward also the listening poems in Kurdish, if we can hear translations. Maybe not today, but in another time.
Yes, I think we absolutely should. I saw that Ipek also arrived. That's very nice. Ipek, welcome. I already read the German translation, so please do your introduction in Turkish and English.
Okay, thank you. First of all, let me speak in English. Now, if it is to speak about Ilhan or prison, I can talk for hours actually. But when I see the program, I am only allowed for, I think, 4 minutes for both Turkish and English translation. First of all, let me thank you all for being here today and for organizing this event. But also, when I saw Ilhan 2 weeks ago, he told me that I should not forget to thank on behalf of him, not only to the organizing committee here or all the people here, but to Margaret Owen, who first started his campaign in Europe. Because if it was Margaret whom I met first and told Ilhan's story. And she was just one night before a long trip, but she took me very seriously. She listened to the whole story. She trusted in my words, and she traveled all the way to Istanbul to witness Ilhan's trial. So she is the one who started all the international conversation. And also, I shouldn't forget to thank to Caroline Stockford, who translated Ilhan mostly in English, and also who made all these platforms possible for us to meet all the friends of Ilhan, to talk to you. So thank you all. And I do these things on behalf of Ilhan, and he sent lots of hello to you all. And Ilhan is the longest serving student prisoner in Turkey, unfortunately. He has been in prison for the last 28 years. And he was put in prison only when he was 22. When you think like this, he spent all his 20s, all his 30s, all his 40s, unfortunately, in a heavy security prison. And when we put things together like this, we can see, which is the most touching part for me, that he spent most time in the prison than outside the prison, because he was only 22, and say that he started realizing the world after 10, 11, I don't know, maybe 13. It was only very short time outside, witnessing the life outside, but more time, which is 28 years in prison. Now, putting him in prison, imprisoning him, they stole his freedom, obviously, but not only his freedom, but also they stole his chances of experiencing life as we do in every day. His chances of education, his chances of making a family, his chances of falling in love, his chances of making his children, all the things. But the thing is that I can say it from the deep of my heart, and witnessing him for a long, long years, that they couldn't manage to stall his imagination. They couldn't manage to stall his dreams. They couldn't manage to stall his hopes. They couldn't manage to stall the love, the kindness, the elegance inside him. And they couldn't manage to stall his warm and beautiful smile. So no authority, no court, no torture could manage to stop Ilhan speaking the words of love, speaking the words of elegance, speaking the words of art. And when we think about it again like that, imagine the years outside the prison. He could only accumulate very little. He could only get very little out of life, because the days outside the prison was very short. He could only collect very little memories outside when he was outside. But what he did was to develop them with his imagination. He embellished what he has got into a beautiful world of poetry, and now you are also listening some of it. When I think like this, Ilhan is, I think, a miracle, because Imagine all the years in, all the tortures you face, all the bad conditions of being a political prisoner in Turkey, being in a heavy security prison. Still, if you follow his words, then you will follow his footsteps of his mind and his imagination. Then you see the love in his poetry. You see the lust for life. You see the beauty of nature in his poetry. So in this sense, he is a miracle. Also, I must save some time for the Turkish, so I want to say a little bit more words in English. When I saw him 2 weeks ago, I told him about this event, and also in all our encounters, whenever we talk to each other, he asks me about all the details of these things, all the details of the organizations made for him, all the details, all the writings about him, and I make sure that I don't forget any detail. So I bring him all the details inside. I bring him all the messages sent to him, all the praise made for him, all the good wishes made for him. And he listens to me very carefully. He questions. It's a difficult thing to tell Ilhan everything within 45 minutes of visitation, because he wants to get even more details. And then he stops and he says like this. 2 weeks ago, this was his message that he said, "Oh, if it is like this, it means that despite all the isolation, all the loneliness I had in the prison for 28 years, I have a huge family of friends outside. I have huge people waiting for me outside. So I will be strong. And I will keep myself up. I will not let prison to put me down. And I will walk out of these doors after 3 years, strong, joyful, optimistic. And I will meet everybody, shake hands with everybody. So everybody, wait for him. He will be here after 3 years. And sometimes when we do things like this, we say, okay, we do something for somebody we don't know. We do it with all our goodwill, and we do it from the depths of our hearts. But is it appreciated? So I just want to also underline it, highlight it, that yes, whatever you do for Ilhan, to raise his voice, to send a simple tweet, just to think about him in your mind, in your heart, it is fully appreciated. And all the things done outside for him is accumulated and becomes a huge, big bond of love to life. So also this is miracle. Thank you very much for being all here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ipek.
Now, shortly in Turkish, I want to say.
Yes, shortly.
Herkese çok teşekkürler. Konu İlhan ve cezaevi olduğu zaman ben saatlerce konuşabilirim. Ama programa baktım ki sadece 4 dakikam var konuşmak için. Kısaca şunu söylemek istiyorum. İlhan cezaevindeki en uzun süre kalan öğrenci mahpustur. Çünkü o içeri alındığı zaman 22 yaşındaydı ve üniversite öğrencisiydi. Ve şu anda 28 senedir cezaevinde. Şimdi böyle baktığımız zaman İlhan bütün 20'li yaşlarını, 30'lu yaşlarını, 40'lı yaşlarını cezaevinde geçirdi. Ve çok açık ki, bunu açıkça görüyoruz ki İlhan'ın dışarıda yaşadığı yıllardan çok daha fazlası yüksek güvenlikli cezaevlerinde içeride geçti. Bu müthiş bir trajedi. Uğradığı bütün haksızlıklar, bütün hukuksuzlukları bir tarafa koyarsak sadece bir insanın dışarıda yaşadığından çok daha uzun bir süre içeride yaşamış olması bile büyük bir trajedi. Ama öte taraftan her trajedinin içinden belki de görebileceğimiz bir iyimserlik çıkıyor. Evet, İlhan'a çok işkence yaptılar. İlhan'ı çok haksız şekilde yargıladılar. Asla adalet yerini bulmadı ve gerçekten hak etmediği bir yaşamı yaşadı 28 senedir. Ama hiçbir güç, hiçbir işkence, hiçbir mahkeme, hiçbir dava, hiçbir kötülük, hiçbir hakim İlhan'ın içindeki iyiliği alamadı. İlhan'ın içindeki iyimserliği, nezaketi, düşünceliliği alamadı. Ve en önemlisi İlhan'ın o güzelim gülümsemesini alamadı. Böyle baktığımız zaman İlhan gerçekten bir mucizedir. İlhan'ın şiirlerini burada bir kısmını dinledik. Yayınlanmış 8 tane şiir kitabı var. Otobiyografisi var. Şimdi 4. baskıya gidiyor otobiyografide. Bunların hepsini okuduğumuz zaman İlhan'ın zihninin adımlarını, ayak izlerini görebiliriz. Ve şunu çok rahatlıkla söyleyebiliriz ki aslında dışarıda güzel bir şeyler biriktirmek için olan zamanı ne kadar kısa olsa da güzel hatıralar biriktirmek için zamanı, iyi şeyler biriktirmek için zamanı çok kısa olsa da İlhan'ın içinde o topladıkları hayatlar, küçük şeyleri o kadar büyüttü, o kadar zenginleştirdi, o kadar genişletti ve o kadar muhteşem bir şiire çevirdi ki bu anlamda ben İlhan'ın bir mucize olduğunu düşünüyorum. Bir de son olarak şunu söylemek istiyorum. İlhan'ı 15 gün önce gördüm. Gayet iyi ve gayet güçlüydü. Ben onunla işte 2 defa ayda görüş var. Bu görüşlere gidiyorum. Ve onunla 45 dakika geçiriyoruz. Ve her 45 dakikada bir çok kıymetli, çok ilham dolu, çok mutluluk dolu. Hem benim için hem onun için. Bunu biliyorum. Bütün detayları bana soruyor her şeyle ilgili. Ve ona anlatıyorum. Lütfen sizler de emin olun ki sizlerden gelen bütün selamları, bütün iyi niyetleri, bütün duaları, İlhan için yapılan etkinlikleri, organizasyonları, onun için yazılan bütün yazıları, bütün detaylarıyla ona anlatıyorum. 15 gün evvel bu konuşmayı yaptığımız zaman İlhan durdu şöyle dedi bana. Bu o zaman gerçek mucize budur dedi. Çünkü ben dedi 28 senedir cezaevindeyim. 28 senedir kahrolası bir yalnızlığa mahkum edildim. 28 senedir izole bir hayat yaşıyorum. Ama dışarıda senin anlattıklarını anladığım kadarıyla beni bekleyen kocaman bir dünya var, dostlar var ve bu benim ayakta durmam için, güçlü olmam için müthiş bir enerji. Bunu özellikle sizlere söylemek istiyorum. Çünkü bu tarz işlerle uğraşan insanlar, bizler bazen şöyle bir yılgınlığa düşebiliyoruz. Tamam biz bunları yapıyoruz da bu ulaşıyor mu? Veya bir işe yarıyor mu? Yani karşı karşıya olduğumuz kötülük o kadar büyük ki bu kadar kötülük karşısında bu yaptıklarımızın bir anlamı var mı? Evet, İlhan tarafından bunu açıklıkla söyleyebilirim ki yaptığımız her şey, onun için yolladığımız her tweet, onunla okuduğumuz her mısra şiirinden, hatta dışarıya bir işaret vermeden, onu zihnimizden, aklımızdan geçirdiğimiz her an, ona güzel enerjilerimizi gönderdiğimiz her an İlhan'a büyük bir sevgi, büyük bir dayanıklılık ve büyük bir güç olarak dönüyor. Bunu size söylemek istiyorum ve bunu da İlhan kendisi bir mucizedir diye söylüyor. Çok teşekkür ediyorum. Lafı uzattıysam da özür diliyorum. Thank you.
Shukran, Ipek. Thank you very much. Very good. So
Thank
much
you.
enthusiasm.
I'm sorry,
That's very
I'm
good.
sorry if I talk too much.
No, don't worry. That's important. You gave all the information. We gave the information in 3 languages.
Oh, thank
So
you.
now I want to pass to Sila Toldi from LetterWithWings to read some more poems in English.
Okay, thank you
Yeah.
very much. Can you hear me well? Yes, okay. I would like to start with a poem that Gino read in German. And this one is in Caroline Stockford's translation into English. It's for this reason. It's for this reason I slashed my face by placing the resonance of a letter in the space between us and the sun. Laugh, I said to the tired face of rebellion. I'm reconciled with this matter now. You know, like drawing a sketch and then staring, asking, is it an apple, pear, or apricot? Saying it's a plum, in that tone that's almost warm, the tone of a pause. Blood's brotherhood was so far away and stopped. Blood that pours from all wounds and flows to me. My skull splits from storing up night's every sound. Hear me well, hear me now. I, who am the love of all the flowers. I cross the Nile, I cross the Arab sands. If the Tigris and Euphrates detain me, it's blood, you know, even taste has a name. Write my name like an eye as a watchman. Because the going is poetry, prose is the road. And I would be a brother to my father, carrying pain on my body like an amulet. The next poem is Life Does Not Lie, for Michael Baron. I am between the moon and the tide, between the whisper and the scream. When I was a child, had still the script of a child. When I was hostage to my mother's pomegranate smile. When I looked from the window to the full light of the garden, watching the practical philosophy of hands plucking the fruit tree. In those times when we still heard the sound of frogs, when women passed through my life and the lake was blue, when I knew the value of blue. I understand there is pain too on the steps of life. On the day of existence, the wind rose up to meet me. Resistance, like dew on the grass, met my feet. Ripe fires grew across my body, and doves, my feelings, were met by the rustle of their wings. In spring's demeanor, I hear the sounds of cleaning. I hear footsteps of plains and mountains and the low of snow melting. Earth grows damp in my memory, fruit ripens, stone's habitual weight grows light, makes it to flow and tremble as it wishes. In my place between trouble and well-being, I hear the song of happiness from the world. As goodwill blossoms, life does not lie. I say it doesn't lie. And another poem, Let Us Not Speak. Let us not speak so much, I say. Let us laugh, leaping the fences of this mistrust. The wind is blowing, wind is blowing. Let us whisper into each other's ears, into your ears. In the river's secret places, in the tender shade of rushes, in the composite of mud bricks, as the whole city sleeps, let us speak little in a corner the light can't reach. There is belief between us and the dryness of a thirsting mouth. Let us sit, pour out the pictures in our heads on the surface of the water. Let us love the carnation as it says, my confession is red. Falcons fly to the world's most lonely height. Let us open our windows to the fluid beauty of butterflies. With the art of feeling, let us hear the hearts rushing. I will sing songs and throw stones like I used to. I will ride horses and recite poetry. Here there is a depth and here a fire. Here lies a word unspoken. Let the doves coo, but let us not speak.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Sila.
you. I would like to add that as Viviana mentioned, we had this session with Irish Pen on Monday, and I responded to a poem of Ilhan, which was actually written to John Macker. I found it on the website of Pen Norway. And he says, Ilhan says, I say the blossoms of the first cherry tree breaking into air. How do they smell? Can you tell me this and what their color is? I seem to have forgotten. And my answer to this is, the first blossoms of the cherry tree smell of mother snow, fresh and fluffy, marshmallow, frozen rain that sneaks into your lungs, cleansing, bringing light. And I would encourage everybody to write to Ilhan, because as we heard, he really appreciates every positive thought. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sila. So now we come to the conclusion, and Liman will close this evening. And afterwards, we open up the mic to our public, which is with us on the Zoom. Who wants to say short things, please write in the chat so I can call you after we close the official event. Okay? So, wir werden jetzt das Event beenden mit Liman, mit einem musikalischen Beitrag. Danach werden wir das Mikrofon öffnen für unsere Gäste, die mit uns hier auf der Zoom-Plattform sind. Wer etwas sagen möchte, etwas Kurzes, kann sich in der Chatline melden und ich werde ihn dann aufrufen. Gut, also Liman.
Ja, ein Teil aus dem Gedicht Lektionen des Regens. Letztendlich kamen die Tauben und landeten auf meiner Zunge. Das sahen wir mit Dankbarkeit bis in die Sackgassen meines Herzens. Ich habe die wilden Zähne des Morgens versteckt und die Wüsten zogen weiter mit den Trommeln des Sandes. Mein Mund ist verwundert bis in die letzten Winkel. Und mein Mund ist ein Meister. Und ich schließe mich dir an, Lieder für dich zu singen. Flügel ausbreitend bis zum Grund eines Regens, welches ihr langes, zitterndes Haar ist, das meine Haut berührt. Ich trockne wie Worte mit sprudelnden Wellen zu den langen Sätzen des steigenden Meeres. Merke dir diese Steine, denk langsam an mich. Zu den gewundenen Füßen der Flüsse hin sage ich, komm du, sage ich zu meiner Seele. Schließe Fenster und Tür und komm. Ich sagte, ich zähle bis 10, überquere die Lichter, wild schwingend deinen Rock. Mit den ältesten Wörtern, die die Schreibregeln brechend, die Nacht. Ich sagte zu meiner Seele, mein Leben, du. Komm, es regnet. Ich sagte, werde nicht nass. Beim Schwingen deiner Hüften stürzen sich Zigeuner auf die Straßen. Dein Haar trägt die Kühle der nassen Vorhöfe, sagte ich, diesen Jungen und derer gebrannten Haut. Sie erheben ihre Hand zum Leben. Halbiere den Apfel, hör auf zu rauchen. Treten Sie nicht auf die Mohnblumen. Ich sagte vorwärts meinem Herz und mit unerfahrenem Wasser zu deinen geschnittenen Adern. Im Dunst der Wahrsagung, in Härte schauernde, die Augenblicke und mit deiner unaufgeräumten, zappeligen Meisterschaft versucht, kalt mit meiner Schamhaftigkeit, schüchtern. Schaue als eine schöne Frau.
Vielen Dank, Leman. Thank you very much. This was very, very beautiful. Very wonderful. So, gibt es jemanden, der gerne noch was dazu sagen möchte zu diesem Event? Hier auf der Liste hat sich keiner eingetragen. Somebody wants to say something about the event, about Ilhan, about the situation or whatever. This is a chance to speak. Nobody. You're all satisfied. Okay. So then I want to thank all the participants.
I want to say something before we close. Do we want to close now? Really?
Yes, we are closing now. We are already over our time.
So I really want to say something before we close.
Good. Yes.
Ich würde erst einmal in Deutsch sprechen, or I try to say it in English first, maybe it's better. I think that nobody will be not touching by heart when they know what happened with Ilhan. And Ilhan is not the only one. Ilhan is really, with so many years, a person which touches very deeply in that moment when you hear this 28 years. But there are so many other people too. They are imprisoned in Turkey over so many years, and they are also not guilty. We know that there are so many political prisoners, and I want to say from here my solidarity and my greetings to all of them. And I think it is very important that when we take One Destiny, so that we see that it is a political thing what happened, and that there are over thousands of people are political prisoners in Turkey, and that we have yes, to support the human rights in Turkey and be in solidarity with all of them. I think this is also for somebody like Ilhan, he's so sensitive that he won't, I think he will be happy to hear that we are in solidarity with all the others and that we think of them also today here. And also it is for me, I said at the beginning, important to say that it is, that I promise I want to help to translate also in Kurdish language, the poems, and want to share it. That's what I want to say. This is for me very important. And in the way of translation, one thing I want to say, it is sometimes not the usual way you use the language maybe when I translate it in German. But I don't did it in that way because I didn't know the useful language and the kind how you can translate it. I did it in that way because I think I have to put the integration has to be in a transcultural way. Every dialect need to be open for new, and it is always a chance to open the mind and to let the language grow by a dialogue and translation with the other language. Before I will, in Turkish, there is no sister and brother. They say just kardeş. And for example, Nazım Hikmet's words, our wish to unsere Sehnsucht einzeln und frei wie ein Baum und wie ein Wald geschwisterlich, sage ich zum Beispiel in der Übersetzung. Aber bei vielen Übersetzungen wird immer von brüderlich gesprochen. When they translate Nazım Hikmet, they always translate it in that they are to be free as a tree and to be in brotherhood, like a wood. But in German, there's also a word for sisters and brothers. You can take it for both, and it is much more near Turkish in that way. So I use it with geschwisterlich and not brotherhood. Things like that. I think it is very important that we use sometimes not the usual language we use when we translate, that we can be a little bit sensitive and put much more of the way how it is said, written in the original form. Maybe it is a little bit foreign when it is translated, but if it is okay for the language, we can use it, even if it is not the normal way to do it. Mit 2 Sätzen nur in Deutsch, ich möchte es nicht sprengen. Mir ist es wichtig, dass bei einer Übersetzung wird oftmals, sage ich mal, sehr darauf geachtet, dass es wirklich ganz geschmeidig in der übersetzten Sprache dann auch in der gängigen Form übersetzt ist. Ich weiß, dass dieser Anspruch oftmals besteht, aber ich denke auch, dass es oftmals auch sinnvoll sein kann und eine Chance in sich birgt, bei einer Übersetzung auch eine blumigere Sprache aus dem Original oder auch die Rede, auch die Satzstellungen in einer vielleicht etwas komplizierteren Weise trotzdem mitzunehmen, weil ja, man doch auch ein Gespür für die andere Sprache dann entwickeln kann und es nicht gänzlich schwindet. Also die Begegnung und die Integration einer eines Gedichts in die andere Sprache sollte immer auch offen sein für die Begegnung des Fremdvorkommenden aus der anderen Originalsprache. Diese Offenheit wünsche ich mir in einer transkulturellen Begegnung. Danke.
Danke, Liman. Nazim, möchtest du gerne noch was sagen?
Wenn das möglich ist, möchte ich kurz was sagen.
Ja, natürlich.
Super. Ich möchte mich erst für diese Möglichkeit oder solche Dinge mich bei Male bedanken, besonders für Ipek oder Erkut sowas gemacht haben, möchte ich mich und bedanken für auch beim alle. Das ist sehr schön und das ist großartig, finde ich auch, dieser Abend, besonders deutschsprachig Ilhans Gedichte zu hören, auch Musik war wunderschön, berührend. Und ich möchte auf Ilhans Name und meinen Familienname, auch mein Name, mich herzlich bedanken. Und das ist sehr schön, auch habe ich auch gelesen, dass da bald wieder Ilhans Gedichte oder seine Bücher auf Deutsch erschienen wird. Das wäre großartig, weil meine Tochter ist 17, sie kann kein Deutsch, Türkisch und entweder Englisch oder Deutsch. Sie wollte unbedingt fragt nach immer, Papa, wann erscheint Onkel Bücher? Ich möchte endlich was lesen und ich möchte auch sich heute überraschen, ich sagen, dass da bald das verwirklicht wird. Das ist auch sehr schön und ja, ich kann dann kurz das sagen, das war sehr schön und ich möchte mich nochmal bedanken. Ich kann nur das sagen. Vielen, vielen Dank.
Ja, danke. Ja, ich bedanke mich auch bei allen Teilnehmern, also Ipek, Ozel, Erkut, Tokman, von LetterWithWings, Vivian Fiorentino, Silsa Toldi, Gino Leineweber von Deutschen Penn und natürlich bei Don Krieger, der uns diese Möglichkeit gegeben hat auf dieser Plattform, und ein ganz großes Dankeschön für den musikalischen Beitrag von Lehmann Steen. Das was ganz Besonderes war.
Gern geschehen.
Und I want to thank everybody who was with us on the Zoom meeting, and I hope to see you soon.